You are watching Hearthstone Grandmasters here in the in the APAC region. Sorry, I was in my head working through what I was going to say next. Yeah, wishful thinking perhaps. But afterwards, we'll be going to the European and then Americas region. Here right now, it is, of course, APAC, and we're finding out who is going to be our Week 3 champion. And it all comes down to this for one player in particular, DawN. He is trying to take this match to guarantee his spot in Division A. If you haven't been keeping up with us in terms of what it is all to play for, in Division A, there are only 2 spots right down at the bottom out of 8 players in Division A where you even have to worry about relegation at all. The top 6 players in Division A automatically go to playoffs to try and fight for their spot as one player goes through to the World Championships. Whereas in Division B, only the top half have a chance of going through to playoffs. The bottom half all have to worry about relegation out of Grandmasters entirely. Scary, scary stuff. And DawN was very much on the brink of going through to relegation at the end of last season. So getting a win here and going through to Division 8 would be a huge boon to him and his overall, I think, mental well-being even here in Hearthstone Grandmasters. But Gia, do you think he is in with a good shot of doing so with his rogue up against the Tempo Mage?
I think he absolutely is. DawN has been playing on point from what I could see for the past few matches. We didn't get to see very much, honestly, because they happened at a blistering pace. I think that's something that blitzchung is probably very comfortable with. For DawN in particular, though, it makes me so happy to see him comfortable and confident because, as you mentioned, he did have a bit of a stressful moment towards the end of last season, and it visibly looked like he was losing confidence in himself, kind of even just slapping his cheeks and, all the visible stress signs, I would say. And to have that break and get it together and top it off with a championship finish would be absolutely huge. But take note that even though the spotlight is on blitzchung and DawN today, there is another player in the story.
Yeah, exactly. In terms of Division AB, blitzchung is, weirdly enough, kind of out of the story. He has already got his guaranteed spot in Division A after taking his first win of the day. The 2 players who are trying to fight for that last final spot in Division A are DawN, obviously playing in this match. If he wins, he gets it. If he loses, however, Possessi will creep in at that last 8th place spot to be in Division A. So I'm sure Possessi and all of his other Japanese compatriots will be very much cheering on blitzchung in this series. And I think they're in with some decent luck because he's been playing some good Hearthstone the last couple of days on the very difficult Tempo Mage, in my opinion.
And he's faced off against this archetype from DawN. He's faced off against Highlander, Priest. It seems like no matter what blitzchung is matched up against, he has a very clear idea of how the game plan should go. As for DawN, though, his opening hand is looking stellar. 1-drop coin, Edwin, and also Miscreant if he would rather delay the Edwin, depending on if he gets, I would imagine, Shadow Step or something along those lines.
Yeah, the Evil Miscreant, to me is very interesting at this point because it's very much vying for that coin in the same way that Edwin is. Very often you find yourself going coin Evil Miscreant and then setting up like a turn 5 Edwin, potentially, when you have a few more lackeys to combo it with. And I'm not such a big fan anymore of keeping Evil Miscreant in the mulligan, especially when you have Edwin Van Cleef to go along with the coin already. But DawN, clearly a player who values the consistent ability to generate extra value over the course of the game.
I think it's justifiable with the 1-drop play because you can just start to build a board which goes wide and puts a lot of lackeys, which is guaranteed. If you have coin Miscreant, you can just go for a dagger lackey play the next on curve. I like the keep. It gives him flexibility.
Fair enough, fair enough. And I guess
but
if I do take a look...
2-drops, the flexibility is even further now.
Yeah, I've got to be honest, I would be surprised to see Cult Neophyte on this turn. I think Shotbot looks very, very clean here.
Although it does make the turn 3 likely to still be coin Miscreant lackey, so you're kind of weighing between is Shotbot now lined up better on board, and my answer would be yes, because both of these minions from blitzchung are at 2 health.
Well, again, we have that conundrum from blitzchung, whether it's the Tempo Firebrand to get it down on board. You still have the Spellburst effect active on the following turn. It's only if it dies that it doesn't get that value. Or is he going to be cycling through his deck with the Arcane Intellect? I have to imagine, based on past experiences, he's going to be leaning more towards tempo in this instance.
Yeah, I'd have to agree. I like the look of how Firebrand lines up on this board. You can even take a value trade onto the Pharaoh Cat. That does mean that if Rogue wants to not trade into Solarian to get rid of it, they have to dagger up on a very awkward turn for them to do so.
Yeah,
I like the approach from blitzchung.
Very much so. Oh, Passage is almost really good here with the Edwin. If only you could hold that one back and say, you know what, I'm going to take that one with me through the Secret Passage, but you can have the rest.
I mean, if you really wanted to get down Edwin this turn, there's a line where you go coin, prep, Edwin, Passage, but then it's just a 6/6 Edwin, and you only get to play like maybe 2 cards off of the Passage. So Miscreant does make a lot more sense here. He ends up with one of the good outcomes in the Goblin Lacking.
I like the look of that. It was... I was looking at obviously rushing the Miscreant first and foremost, but you might be looking at going for rushing the Reborn Shotbot 2-1, which is pretty smart as well, leaving more health on the board.
Although rushing the Miscreant does leave more minions on board, and after you've seen the Firebrand go away, I think he's much more comfortable with this type of board presence.
Sure.
All of them challenging the Solarian.
So, do we carry on with our game plan we've been going for the start for blitzchung and just play our biggest minion on curve here?
What to do?
It's reasonable. He ends up ahead on board.
Yeah, I like it.
Take a value trade as well. But this is definitely the size of board where Rogue can absolutely turn this around in their favor. Blitzchung is instead removing the 2 damage from the board, possibly playing around backstab.
Tough game now. You know, prep 1 Thief into Edwin could be huge if you hit the right spell. I'm thinking Frostbolt. I'm thinking Brain Freeze. I'm not really thinking any of these, though.
Yeah, even a Ray of Frost would have been great here.
True.
These are all just that little bit expensive, Combustion and Potion, I mean, to get down with Edwin this turn. You could just take Elemental Allies and treat it as +2 for the Edwin.
Okay, I like this deviation. I think Edwin on that turn was just not impactful enough. Him being able to deal with it with likely just the Ogre and maybe a little bit of extra spells from the Ray of Frost or something like that. You want to save the Edwin to be the win con.
Well, I was getting worried about how the Edwin is getting played because the prep was used that way, but with a 1-drop off the top, I think he can very happily just take a 6/6 here. And he goes super wide on board. Blitzchung with a double mana giant hand. 1 apprentice could change the entire story here.
That's true.
For now. We get some miracles.
It's looking good for DawN. An apprentice, a wayward devolving missile sniping the Edwin could be a huge deal as well to slow this all down.
Even takes Thalnos instead of Prime here because he wants to cycle towards apprentice, I can only imagine.
Yep, cycle towards apprentice, cycle towards the Prime that's already in the deck.
Sure.
That's very valid as well.
Well, you mentioned wayward missiles. It depends on your perspective. It could be the most accurate missiles ever if you're a Blitzchung or Possessi fan.
Very true.
Oh, first one! Oh, wow.
Insane devolving missiles there, giving a garbage 1-drop as a 1/1 there as well. Massively mitigating the amount of value that DawN has to work with now.
Indeed. Blitzchung has bought himself time, which is absolutely what he needs to get these mana giants cheaper and try and swing the board. That still, in my opinion, lacking an apprentice to really turn this into a game-winning position.
Plague of Madness is interesting here because, you know, it's a way to fight back against anything that Blitzchung throws down, but giving them the ability to kill off your 3/5 is painful, for sure.
Yeah, I think you probably just end up floating the mana here.
Okay, yeah, I agree. If there was a little bit more burn in the deck, I think I'd be happy to let my opponent swing the weapon into a 3/5. But with this list being very light on burn, you fight for board. That's what you do.
Blitzchung hasn't drawn Apprentice, but the double magic trick into Primordial Studies, which is kind of like double dipping on your Mana Giant cheapening effects,
That's
could
true.
give him a little bit of, or rather, could be that little bit fast enough for him to put down the Giants next turn.
Real duds, though, it's got to be said. He was looking for either Prime or obviously another Thalnos to keep the card draw going, maybe even Steward of Scrolls just to discover an extra spell. But with no added value from either of these cards apart from the spell damage, it's looking pretty rough.
It really is. But this very much feels like the last turn that blitzchung can afford to delay. So I wouldn't mind him just taking the Kobold again, or say the Dalaran Mage, and playing Dalaran Kobold this turn. Get the mana out of the way. Oh, sorry, that won't be available because of the cheap... Wait.
Well, he can go Draconic Kobold Mana Giant on this turn, right? To get an 8/8 in play.
True.
But he'd rather get the ping in. Interesting.
Okay. Okay, this line I think makes a lot of sense. My head was at saving Mana Giants to be played on the same turn. I think Blitzchung's best line here is to look for a whole board freeze, say from the Evocation Frost Nova, or even just Rays of Frost on all the big minions. And then when you get both the Giants down at the same time, it really makes it so that one Blackjack Stunner is not a complete disaster for you. And I was looking at playing down double spell damage minions to get the cheapening out of the way, but he has just taken it so that he will not have to spend that much mana on spell damage minions next turn anyway, and then you'll end up with the most space in hand for Evocation.
It's very much the way that Blitzchung has been playing, of building up for these big combos instead of holding too avariciously. Instead of playing out too liberally, I should say, sorry, your resources.
Evocation for DawN as well?
That looks good to me. Oh my god, this could get insane because he could get Mana Giants on this turn due to the Plagiarize, which are insane in Temper Rogue with the amount of extra cards that you're generating and playing out.
He could. I would imagine the turn's going to start with the Kobolds and Evocation. And so based on DawN's hand space, probably won't end up with Giants.
That's a big deal, though. Cram session to find some extra... Well, basically to find Apprentice at this point. I was going to say to find some other stuff. Apprentice is what you need.
Right. It's tough to optimize, though, because Blitzchung... Like, I think the end game plan here is generate a way to get Frost Nova. So whether it comes from Evocation or trying to roll for Apprentice, and then you get the possibility of magic tricks from the deck.
Right.
I don't hate the line of just going for Evocation and maximizing the mana. But he has not hit that Nova.
And I think DawN is definitely going to be feeling a little... He's going to have questions about whether or not he should have played the Plagiarize there over the Dirty Tricks, because this Plagiarize is not going to be that impactful. It's going to fill up his hand and only give him a couple of junky Kobolds.
Indeed. Blitzchung had one more mana here. The Mirror Image could have also made a huge difference, but in the end, getting down both the Mana Giants at the same time, dealing with the vast majority of threats from DawN, and placing nicely for Betrayal, but I guess not so nicely for Combustion, ends up great for Blitzchung.
My hand is too full.
Okay, that's not so bad. Ways to clear this up for sure for DawN. He can sap one. He could even Plague of Madness to kill off the other Mana Giant if he wanted to.
There's some spicy stuff here. I'm seeing double spell damage plus Vendetta, but then you would still end up having to put the 2/1/2s into the Giant. And then, yeah, I would agree, sapping the other Giant seems efficient. Okay, he could just go for the Vendetta, double trades Miscreant and the Blackjack Stunner, and you end up with a Kobold-filled board.
Oh, I know I'm letting Cast Division get to me here, but that Cram session in hand, it's taunting me here, Gia. The fact that he has to clear that off, and if he does, if he clears off both these Kobolds, he's basically locked out the game.
Well, I think he's still getting it down next turn. This looks like an Evil Miscreant for DawN's remaining mana, right?
Sure.
You get Caster Vision, I get results oriented. Whoa,
Apprentice Cram session.
He
Okay,
had
let's
that
start that way.
one turn earlier.
Okay, this is strong. This is very strong.
Anj on the 6/6? Or is it just a Jandis turn? I mean, we
Yeah.
could just see like trades Jandis.
Like 6/6 is a good 6-drop, right? You don't really want to split that up and potentially get some of the bad ones, I feel.
That's true. Oh, Raz Crossbow! Are you kidding me?
What?
Are you kidding me?
What? Oh
Harrison
my
is
god!
100% the illusion here. Hello? That is not legal whatsoever. Now he can just ping the Miscreant and it's dead.
Time runs out on me.
I think he was testing for eye for an eye first by pinging face to take as little damage as possible.
Okay.
And then he's going to trade.
Sure, you can just use either the Kobold or the Dagger here now. Yeah.
This guarantees the minimum damage possible.
What the heck are these Jandises today, Derek?
How did this happen? DawN was so far in the lead.
Okay, he can still pull it back. I'm seeing Pressure Plate and Blackjack Stunner.
Uh-huh.
There's ways to generate freezes.
Brain Freeze is good. That's a good card.
Indeed. And he has Shadow Step for the Stunner, so he can put back the 6/6 and I suppose the Harrison, and DawN just uses his Dagger Charge on the Raz. And he can develop the Faceless Lackey.
Okay, okay. Things are happening.
Don't let the door hit you.
And yet, it's a lot of mana floated, so he could just throw down the Evocate.
Yeah.
I don't think you can commit to playing Colossus next turn, so probably save Evocation.
Exactly. Evocation is the turn 10 play in my
Oh,
opinion.
yeah, and this fan. Okay, that's a great way of using his mana now.
That's so big! Being able to go Evocation or going
Oh.
Conjurer's Calling on the Jandis would have been so big.
And missing the 2 damage charge here, DawN is kicking himself internally.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a reflex to just end the turn because you hardly ever expect to get damage off of Faceless Lackey, but it could be relevant here. We're coming
It could
down
be
to the wire.
Extremely relevant. Like, he's just given up the possibility for double Fireball lethal off of the Evocation.
That's true. Well, blitzchung, with his actual Raz drawn now, can make quick work of this board, not bothering to play a spell because he is scared of Pressure Plate as a possibility.
Yep.
In firm control now. Can DawN put together this last bit of damage
Oh my god. So you go Backstab?
on the Apprentice?
Uh-huh.
Probably Evo first. Oh, Frostbolt!
Oh.
Mirror Image is not so good because of Raz, but maybe you just save a couple health for the immediate next turn.
He can kill the Raz. I was going to say he can't kill the Raz. Technically he can with Flame Strike, Frostbolt. That is the clear.
Yep. And DawN's perspective, he knows blitzchung has that one super slow dragon in hand. So he can take a stance of just trying to remove one thing after another.
Yeah.
Sucks to lose both the boxes, but you take it when you can.
And already from blitzchung, I was going to say maybe DawN can find time to play Colossus of the Moon. Not this turn. He's dead on board. He has to find an answer.
And that's not it.
Oh, my heart goes out to DawN. At the start of the game, I thought he was winning. I assume he thought he was winning if he's played any reasonable amount of this matchup, which I'm sure he has. And then all of a sudden it just starts slipping away from him there. A couple of sloppy plays along the way. And it's, for me, it's emblematic of DawN's play. For the most part, very, very strong play. But when the stress starts in, that's when the cracks start to show.
I hesitate to even call it sloppy. It is just like a 1 second too quick end turn press, which happens to the best of them. Of course, it's not optimal, but I really, really hope that DawN doesn't let that get to him because he chance in this that is just game 1. We are in best of 3 and we have a lot more Hearthstone to come. Don't think that DawN will be switching his deck though.
No, I don't. And I agree with your point. I may be making it sound a bit too strong. I don't mean that his play was awful. I just mean that it's kind of emblematic of his mental state. It's for me, it's where we start to see some signs of weakness. Even if they don't end up losing the game, as I don't think they did here, it's we can see the stress starting to set in. As you said, it's the cheek slap in play that starts coming in at the end when he gets stressed. Which I think, yeah, he does need to get his mental game in check because he can still turn this around. He knows the deck inside and out clearly, and with just 2 more strong games against blitzchung, he can be our week 3 champ.
Your back.
Well, tell you one thing, the person who is happy to see DawN stress setting in is definitely Possessy, because blitzchung, if he takes this win, will lock up Possessy's slot in Grandmasters as well. But blitzchung is deep in the tank about this mulligan. Primordial Studies looks like the only one that's very likely keep here, in my opinion. Ooh.
Wow.
Okay, devolving against a deck that really relies on Edwin questing, I can understand that, but the Raz keep is very unusual.
Super weird mulligan there. That is not a hand that I would have kept there, I've got to say. But there's things that we have to start paying attention to here already. You know, devolving missiles is a one-off. The big win condition of the deck, as we've said multiple times, questing's an entrance. So you just have an answer to that right out of the gate. I'm fine with that keep. And we saw the power of Raz against a deck that runs a bunch of 1-drops and lackeys. blitzchung, I think, very arguably correctly realizes the power of just having a 1 or 2 damage AoE.
He's definitely onto something. I feel like the power of the Razes he's gotten was off the back of starting with a powerful curve. I think Raz definitely compounds as a threat if you are already ahead on board and then your opponent tries to put down 1 or 2 things and fight back, and then the Raz absolutely blows them out of that game plan. You can make the argument for it because he already had Primordial Studies as his play on 1, but I think there's some potential for this to go a little bit sideways.
You think by not having enough tempo at the start of the game, he can just fall behind?
It could be. Against the particular hand from DawN, which is not high threat, maybe not quite.
Ooh, okay. This is, you know, perfect mana utilization in the first few turns for DawN. But he does need to worry already about next turn. Pharaoh Cat can sort that out, but Plagiarize on its own is obviously a 0 tempo play, so we might need to find something else to keep the pressure coming.
I was thinking that this would be the Plagiarize turn and then you go for Cult Neophyte, but if you expect blitzchung to just go for something like the Tempo Firebrand, as he's been doing very often,
true.
then it can be good to go for it in a different order instead. And the benefit of, if you just treat Cult Neophyte as, I'm gonna shut down your best play this turn, then in terms of aggression, then you just do want to order it where the 3-2 comes down earlier.
Agreed. Kind of interesting to point out at this point that for blitzchung, it's a results-oriented look at his starting hand, because on average, I think he can definitely expect to get a 1 or 2 mana spell damage minion off of the Primordial Studies. And so getting a Dalaran Mage as the cheapest option definitely makes this a lot clunkier than I think it would have otherwise looked if he were to get either the Lab Partner or a Solarian, for example.
It is so true. With the Firebrand drawn, unfortunately, I don't see a way of making it work, because ideally you want to ping and then go Firebrand and get the Spellburst activation, so the Grand Mummy Death Rattle doesn't affect any minions, but of course, that would mean you'd have to coin before playing Firebrand. Doesn't make much sense. So, devolving instead.
Yeah, he's just got to think, what would I rather give my opponent here? And I'm pretty sure the answer is you would rather give the mirror images with Raz in hand and a spell damage minion able to come down on turn 6 with the coin. You can sweep that up, I think, reasonably easily.
And on top of what you give them, I think there's also a question of, are you okay with letting them have this kind of board state at the end? Because if you go for the mirror image, then almost certainly the Grand Mummy is going to go off and buff something else. Whereas with devolving missiles, you have a chance of clearing the board entirely. I'm not sure how high it is, but blitzchung decides to go for something that's more within the range that he can predict.
And
Oh my gosh, this turn from DawN!
yeah, one thing you can always predict is the power of an Edwin Van Cleef coming down and ruining your life.
Well, blitzchung held to devolving for this purpose. Both in the mulligan and possibly in that very last turn, where he chose to play Mirror Image instead.
It's just working out pretty well, actually, isn't it? Like, he's got coin spell damage Raz on the following turn for a 2 damage AoE. As long as he hits the Edwin here, which he does, he's looking fine.
It's been a defensive game plan, which you can make the argument for if, as Mage, I think if Mage can just manage to answer the majority of Rogue's threats, in the late game they should be in a good spot. Because, oh my god, another Fire Heart! How does DawN do this? Anyway, they should be in a good spot because this version of Rogue is not running Eviscerates or Burst. They tend to generate it, whereas Mage, I think, can get a little bit more value towards the late game.
I want all 3 of these cards. I'd take the lot of them, please. I don't want to choose.
I'm definitely looking at Solarian just to fill out the curve for this turn.
That's definitely my first glance. But then again, like Instructor Fireheart, I focus too much on the extended Battlecry effect. It can just be 3 mana 3/3, discover a card. That's not bad.
Definitely more value-oriented. My thinking here is that DawN has been going for an aggressive game plan. He's seen that blitzchung was just answering turn after turn and still taking incremental damage. So DawN was trying to hope that he could just continue that little bit of chip damage every turn and come out ahead. But blitzchung was saving up this Raz turn for this type of swing. Now, the story is completely different. The game plan for blitzchung is coming together.
You know, I actually just low-key think that this keep from blitzchung was genius. Like, it's so different to how I would have played it, but the fact that, the word that you pointed out in defensive, it's a way of playing the tempo mage that I think has been maybe missing from what I've been approaching it, because I like to hoard my cards and set up for big turns, but I'm not playing the defensive plays enough. But because he had the answer to big minions in Edwin or Questings with the Devolving Missiles, the answer to small minions with the Raz Frost Whisper, he can basically answer anything DawN throws down and buy himself the time to start going for Arcane Intellect, Apprentice, these huge swing turns that could be so impactful.
Yeah, the way this turned out, for sure, it definitely shows where blitzchung's head was at, and this is the type of outcome that he would expect to get on average. I'm sure he has more experience than I do, and that's why he decided that that type of hand was good enough to keep. There's definitely room for rate, I would say, if the rogue hits secret passages and can chain a board where it's questing on one turn into Edwin on the next, or vice versa. With the 1 devolving missiles, it starts to fall apart. But I guess that is not that likely to happen compared to the type of draw DawN got this game, which is small minions plus 1 big threat, and that's perfectly lined up with blitzchung's keep.
Yeah, it really is absolutely perfect. Okay, bit of a dud there, it's got to be said. Basically just wanted any spells at all, didn't really matter what they were on that turn, to go with the Cyclone. And now he's got to be a little bit afraid of damage, actually. It's not life-threatening by any stretch here yet, but it can start to get there, and it opens up the possibility for the Rogue to discover lethal off of 1.
Yeah, I was even looking at possibility of Nova there and protect your Apprentice potentially to survive another turn for the Mana Cyclone. With 1 card in DawN's hand, I thought that turn was reasonable, but this is a huge top deck.
The Prime! He picked the Solarian! He got the Prime! That's disgusting!
Yep. Oh, that's going to blitzchung's face for sure! Oh my goodness. That was a very good Prime.
A very good Prime. Good job, DawN. Frost Nova can be used to buy blitzchung a turn, but he has to get something very impressive done now to get his win condition back online.
He can take 1 mini Cyclone, given that he has the other Cyclone in hand. But in the meantime, DawN can just dagger away at blitzchung's face. Put the clock on him. Miscreant drawn. Kobold Lackeys are hugely relevant here.
Oh, do you know, weirdly enough, the best draw in the deck for DawN was any secret, because he could go prep secret, stunner his own prime, and then play it again. But this'll do. This'll do. Huge board, lethal represented, way over lethal on board.
DawN is super stressed out despite being on the brink of victory here. blitzchung needs to think really quickly. There is Shenvala, Ray of Frost.
Shenvala is a lot of mana to spend on this turn.
It is.
What to do? What to do?
The alternative is rolling fireball. Okay, and then he can freeze prime.
He's taking 2 damage on board then.
Doesn't even want to take the 1. Reasonable.
Sure, yeah, I can respect that.
This line also just gives him the most hand space for evocation next turn. I think it makes a lot of sense. 1 Sinister Strike or Deadly Poison is GG! Oh my god!
What a way to end things there for DawN, and to equalize our finals at 1 game apiece. He has to get his mind in order here to take this series. You can see the mental stress, the fatigue that's playing on him here. I mean, that says it all right there.
That does not look like the face of a man who just won a game. But it goes to show just how much of a difference it makes if you get in Division A or Division B. DawN has been there at the very bottom, the lowest you can get without actually relegating. And he knows what it feels like to be so close to not coming back for Grandmasters for another season. Just doesn't want to get in that space again. And you absolutely cannot blame him.
Yeah, I mean, that to me looked like a man saying, all right, Brain, I don't like you and you don't like me, but let's just get through this and then we can go back to, I don't know, whatever DawN does in his free time when he's not playing Hearthstone. But it's so close to it now. I am so tense for both of these players to get through to this final. Again, blitzchung, he's really just trying to take this Week 3 final. It's not a position on the line. It's just respect and honor amongst his teammates and compatriots here in Hearthstone Grandmasters. Again, like I said, I really respected his starting hand there. It was very out there. It's not the traditional thinking of how you play Tempo Mage, but I thought it had very strong reasoning behind it, and on average, I think had a good chance of working out, even if it didn't quite come into actuality there. Maybe this time we'll see a slightly more traditional hand where he tries to lock down the board at the start.
One key difference, though, is that for this game, DawN is the one with the coin, which, as the mage player, it just becomes such a lack of resources when you don't have that, because it means you also don't have the extra cards. So then you kind of think that you can't afford to be super greedy with your mulligan, less chances to actually get back cards that you want to play on curve. So the full mull here, I think, is fully justified. Cram Session, probably something you would want to keep in this faster matchup only if you have the lab partner or Primordial Studies to go with it.
So brutal here for DawN. He's just in that situation, I can feel it, where you're eyeing up every card in the mulligan as it comes in one at a time. Please give me the good stuff, good stuff. I want Edwin, I want Questings, I want to lock down the board at the start. Because while this hand could keep going and going, it's not representing very much damage at all. And Generous Mummy is possibly the worst card in the game to play against Tempo Mage.
It really is. Give them another apprentice, why don't you?
Yeah, literally. Apprentice for minions as well.
But blitzchung shook his head also just at seeing Pharaoh Cat on 1. The 1-drop makes a big difference here.
Oh my god. I mean, already there is the all-in play of going backstab, coin, prep, passage, and say, please, Lord above, give me an Edwin.
That is a possibility. Not the highest odds, but the alternatives all look quite slow. I was definitely eyeing a 1 Thief line there instead, but the mana just didn't work out very nicely. So DawN is just taking the time to equip his dagger, and we could see stab 1 Thief next turn, plus from that played, or the secret.
It's interesting. I was actually eyeing a Dirty Tricks line on that turn instead of the dagger, just to try and get those cards into hand. Because this is, this is the hand that if you do find Edwin, if you do find Questing, you just win the game. It doesn't matter if you've left an extra 1-2 on the board.
It's true. Well, this could very well be Dirty Tricks One Thief.
Oh.
Or it's the passage play!
Oh!
Okay.
He doesn't want to start with
backstab this first.
backstab?
If you're... Yeah.
Okay, I disagree with that, but fine, let's go.
Oh, blitzchung gearing himself up for disaster.
Oh, he gets
Another
second
passage?
He can go again.
But he's settling.
Okay, saying this is good enough.
Which is reasonable. He did just get 3 cards for free off of that passage. But it is not quite good enough. It feels like DawN is relying on this plagiarize to give him something good, but he played it on the same turn as called Neophyte, so you're not likely to get many cards back.
True. That is very, very true.
But Shanvala for Rogue is hugely relevant.
Pretty good. Pretty good.
Not quite playable, the Shanvala this turn, but...
Yeah, you're going with the questing line here, I think, quite clearly. It's just whether you go with the Wand Thief or the Pharaoh Cat in addition to it.
This is huge. Blitzchung again, though, he has this one of devolving missiles.
He doesn't have to rip it yet. This could be a Jandis turn instead. You populate the board, allow yourself to be hit with... What? I'd be very surprised if you're expecting to be hit with more than a 7-7, 8-8 questing on the following turn on average, and then you go with the missiles thereafter.
Oh, my problem with the Jandis is that it's lined up against an already equipped dagger and a Pharaoh Cat, which can likely remove both the Jandis and 1 illusion minion, so...
That's true.
But you're right, the devolving missiles, if it comes down this turn, the rest of it is just going to be this Azure Explorer with Magic Trick, which feels awful because you kind of want to save Azure Explorer with the Cram Session. Ooh. Okay, now he has a taunt that can protect the illusion minion.
Right.
Unless Mind Games?
Oh, as in the concept of Mind Games, not the card Mind Games. I got a bit confused there.
I don't know. I think I went a little bit too deep there, but it does feel like you're supposed to put the illusion on the 3-6. Or not.
Okay, well, he doesn't care about the taunt. It's, I think, more just about stats on board. Like, he's very much using his health as a resource here to try and stick to board control. But up against this devastating Restless Mummy, board control is gone like that.
Yeah, and also it's so relevant that DawN gets to put down an additional minion as well. So now there's going to be 3 targets going into the next turn, devolving missiles. If blitzchung wants to give himself the best odds of clearing the questing, has to ping off the cat first.
Double sacking in the Restless Mummy over going for the Vendetta is something that I have questions of. I mean, actually, I guess next turn, being able to go Shenvala...
Yeah.
Oh no, he can't go Shenvala Vendetta, right? Because he doesn't have a non-rogue spell in hand.
True. Just noticed that.
Yeah. I think I would have preferred going for the Vendetta there to have an extra 3-1 in play, probably.
Good point, but...
It's close.
More salient issue is blitzchung still grasping for a way to deal things.
Yep.
Okay.
He's, if nothing else, leading up to ping devolving missiles, which he just generated a second one off of Tome of Intellect.
And this is a situation where I would more consider playing the generated one because he has Mana Giant in hand.
Is it cold in here?
Okay, well, that draw...
Yo! That was the draw. That was
Oh, wait.
the
He
draw.
doesn't have mana, right? Oh, wait.
Oh, he can go
Then
Vendetta Brain.
yeah, the Vendetta is for free now. Oh my god.
That was so big on that turn there for DawN. It really cannot be overstated. Dirty Tricks as well, sorry. Yeah, even miscounting the mana there on my behalf. But 7 mana play next turn, drawing more cards. It's surprising how much sustainability blitzchung has here, and DawN has here, sorry. And blitzchung is struggling to find an answer.
It's been delay after delay. He has this other devolving missiles, but it's not quite going to reduce as many stats as it would on a questing because the 5/5 is considered a 5-drop.
You can draw 3 cards with the Explorer into Cram Session and then just let rip with the missiles?
He could even just take this as a complete draw turn of Azure Cram Cram and say,
Whoa.
I need to hit Apprentice. Everything else isn't good enough. On face value, this is just 8 damage on board.
Yeah, he would overdraw there, I think, because of the dragon being generated as well. But
True.
some kind of a draw turn, I definitely don't hate the idea of.
We could still see it from Intellect. Great one to end the turn with, because if DawN trades it off, that gives blitzchung a possible amazing top deck.
Mm-hmm. And so now you play Goru, because it's a 5/10, I think, on this turn.
Yup. Goru.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, a big wall for blitzchung to get through. It's like he was hovering over Azure to start the turn, so it is gonna be, I thought, card draw, but did he just hover Evocation?
Looked like it to me. Okay. Just toying with our hearts there.
Mm-hmm. And go for Frostbolt. Built up resources, but he's still an Apprentice short of really popping off.
Give me a quest.
And that is a huge draw there for DawN. The cards
Yeah.
being played every turn, the value is kept high. Unless he finds a spell, he is starting to run out of value, but it's looking like it will just be enough to get over the finish line this game.
Even going for taunting the questing, just to get the health on it, because he knows
Sure,
that blitzchung's board will be empty this turn.
DawN's heart has to be going like crazy here. He's on the brink of Division A, but Solarian Prime is drawn for blitzchung. That could be the way out for him.
It's
DawN can't believe it.
Yeah, blitzchung did not have the hand space to try and find Apprentice here, so he is banking on removal, on freeze here from the Solarian. 2 of them are complete whiffs. That's a whiff. That is huge. But wait,
It's not enough.
he doesn't have any other spells to deal with the questing? How is that possible?
He has to go
Trick
evocation into exactly Ray of Frost or Trick Totem.
Or brain freeze from the evocation.
Sure.
To do what?
I don't know what the better odds are. Probably evocation. But I want to see the trick totem.
Time runs out on me.
Do it, blitzchung!
Is this
For the
really
memes.
what is... DawN's chances are lying on Trick Totem or Ray of Frost?
The fact that evocation only gives him 1 roll,
Oh my god.
I have no idea. That is not aimable at minions. DawN, hands up! Gets there. Division A locked up for him, and sadly for Possessi, that is Division B guaranteed for him.
An unbelievable performance, and my goodness for DawN. I'm feeling the relief myself here. He's praying, thanking to whatever higher power may be listening to him. Because he's done it! Easy for DawN. At the end of all of that, it was a messy series all around, but a delightful one to watch. And for DawN, you've done it, man. Division A, he can set his sights on qualification through to the World Championships this year.
DawN's happiness is infectious, man. He just looks so purely, wholesomely elated there. Tyler has a new contender for best pop-off. Absolutely. And for DawN, it's not only huge that he makes Division A, but also this is his first win of an entire week. And that is just such a confidence booster going into the round robin. And we've talked about how much the confidence and being in a good mental state matters for DawN in particular. I'm just so happy for him.
I am as well. I think it speaks not only to DawN, but also to his entire practice group. As you were alluding to, obviously the South Koreans seem to be banding together a little bit more this season, at least openly, in terms of spreading that message. And with, Chonsu, DawN, and Rivius all going for this secret miracle rogue that we've been seeing from a lot of the players, and playing it very, very well for the most part. I loved watching them go along the way. Commiserations to Possessi, of course. That does mean, I believe now that we are looking at 2 out of the 3 Japanese players in Division B overall. It's a far cry, obviously, from Season 1 with all three of them right up at the top of Division A. But with that said, we're going to take a look at the bracket for today and see how everything shook out, all things considered. DawN, the Week 3 champion, well-deserved winner. But for a lot of the other players along the way, blitzchung, he was in potential relegation, or potentially the spot to get into Division B, but both him and DawN end up as our two representatives in Division A.
It was such an action-packed day. For blitzchung, we've seen so many brilliant plays today, from the mulligan, from just taking different lines and approaches to tempo mage. And although we keep talking about how he's a great aggro player, it's not in just dumping every minion on board and going face. Well, sometimes dumping a ton of minions is apparently what you want to do with a deck that plays a bunch of spells, as he showed with his first stream. And then later on, he went for a different approach altogether of just defensiveness. So I think it's more accurate to say that blitzchung can take an aggro deck in any direction he so chooses, as long as he's had enough practice with it, and that is incredibly impressive as well.
I agree completely. That's the mark of truly strong aggro players, not just, like you said, brain dead playing it out. Have to be adaptable, you have to be flexible with your game plan, as I think all the different players showed today, because I really hope that we get to see more of these tempo mages, the secret rogues in the weeks to come, because I think they're such interesting archetypes to be explored more. I mean, all in all, I'm just really loving the metagame at the moment. I think even Priest, which I've traditionally not been a fan of as a class, I think is very interesting to watch, to see the different play styles that players are going for. Druid can be cool with the different archetypes as well. It's going to be a great few weeks here to come in Hearthstone Grandmasters, with not only the round robin season yet to come. We're going to take a break in a couple weeks' time for Masters Tour Montreal along the way, which will be great fun to see all the Grandmasters that you know and love, as well as a lot of newcomers along the way trying to fight for that spot in Grandmasters. That does, of course, mean that we are all done for APAC for today. The entire Swiss portion is wrapped up. We have our Division A and we have our Division B ready to go. So next week, our players really start to fight out for that spot, trying to get through to the playoffs for the last week and trying to avoid relegation, mostly for those players in Division B. Europe will be up next, where they're going to be, I think, just fighting out mainly for honor, but still incredibly high level of play that you come to expect from Europe. So unless you have anything left to add, Gia, I am going to sign us off.
Yeah, I just want to say that I had so much fun with these first 3 weeks going through all our different formats. Of course, starting off with Conquest, then that little Last Hero Standing taste. And Specialist really, really surprised me for how fun it was to watch. And in no part was that influenced by the very, very short work days that we have. But anybody who wants to see more Hearthstone, of course, starting next week, we are going to be having the full best of fives back again. And every day will be starting at the earlier time than usual.
Yeah, it'll be a lot of fun. So thank you so much for watching us here in APAC from Gia and myself. Production, everyone working to bring you the best Grandmasters content we can. We're going to sign off. Europe will be coming up now with Raven and Sottle. So we'll see you next week. But for now, enjoy.